Wangsan sai baku lilia, takkan ajo kawan-kawanan lamu, sangke basulia sulia, bandu dua yona elu, dan suko bago tonggoyo, aki sanang samu dirasu, dan takkan ajo kampuan. Solerang, anak yang manis, anak manis janganlah dicium, sayang kalau dicium belalah pipinya. Anak manis janganlah dicium, sayang kalau dicium belalah pipinya. Injit siapa sakit naik di atas, injit semut, walau sakit jangan dilepas. Injit semut, siapa sakit naik di atas, injit semut, walau sakit jangan dilepas. Kita nonton ondel-ondel, nyok kita ngarak ondel-ondel, ondel-ondel anak nandak keigelan, mak bapak ondel-ondel ngibit, ngarak pengantin disulatin, nyan nonton rame kegirangan, ngarak iring-iringan. Tokecang bala gendir kosong, angen kacang satu pendil kosong. Tokecang bala gendir kosong, angen kacang satu pendil kosong. Gundul pacucu gembelengan, nyunggi wakuku gembelengan, waku blimpang segane desa rata, waku blimpang segane desa rata. Suwe ora jamu godong telo, suwe ora ketemu pisan atine gelo, suwe ora jamu sodo tuntun, suwe ora ketemu pisan atine seneng. Ayo rek mlaku nang tunjungan, rek ayo rek rame-rame bebarengan, cak ayo cak sopo gelem melu aku, cak ayo cak golek kenalan cak ayo. Jetik meriuk hilangi sumping dari jauh, datang nek kecibok bawa kepiting 2 ekor. Periuk hilangi sumping dari jauh, datang nek kecibok bawa kepiting 2 ekor. Cak dalam bilang api cak hidung gigi rongga, sahabat ketawa dolo di pancung raja tunda. Parampar pisang belum masak sabigi diurung bari-bari, masak sabigi diurung bari-bari. Manggalepok, patah kayu bengkok dimakan api, apinya kaculupan. Bengkok dimakan api, apinya kaculupan. Hindu kepala lindu, hujan diudik di sini mendung. Anak siapa tanpa pakai kerudung, mata melirik kaki kesandung. Buka pintu, beta mau masuki. Siola nona beta adalah dimukai. Beta panggil tidak menyaut, buka pintu juga tidak mau. Siola nona beta mau masuki. Beta panggil tidak menyaut, buka pintu juga tidak mau. Buka pintu, beta mau masuki. Mana di mana anak kambing saya? Anak kambing tuan ada di pohon waru. Mana di mana jantung hati saya? Jantung hati tuan ada di kampung baru. Caca marica hehe, caca marica hehe, caca marica ada di kampung baru. Caca marica hehe, caca marica hehe, caca marica ada di kampung baru. Sayang si patokaan matego golokan. Sayang si patokaan matego golokan. Sayang saku mangemo tanaman jauh, mangemo milele laku. Sayang saku mangemo tanaman jauh, mangemo milele laku. Sayang amko rambe amko halo nawang kom. Hey amko rambe amko halo nawang kom. Hey minoki be kupano kombo beko yuk mano muno awe ade. Hey minoki be kupano kombo beko yuk mano muno awe ade. Onke riro, onke jombe riro. Onke riro, onke jombe riro. Onke riro, onke jombe riro. Onke riro, onke jombe riro.
Being able
kata-kata kang mahibang ang katulad ko sa'yo. Biru-biru ang simula, ang wakas padla ay ano. Aayaw-ayaw na ako, ngunit yan ay di totoo. Dahil sa'yo, puso kong ito'y binihag mo. Kata-kata kang mahibang ang katulad ko sa'yo. Kung gandang pag-uusapan ay higit na ang Pilipina. Sa lungkot man o sa ligaya, karinyosa rin at masaya. Sa gitna man ng kahirapan, may sigla pa rin kung kumilos. Pilipina ay karinyosa sa pag-irog. Ay hirang simpatikang tunay, puso mo ay ginto. Pangarap ng bawat nagmamahal ay mutya, yaman ka sa buhay, di mata ay dukha, pag kita nakagdan. Kung gandang pag-uusapan ay higit na ang Pilipina, sa lungkot man o sa ligaya, karinyosa rin at masaya. Sa gitna man ng kahirapan, may sigla pa rin kung kumilos. Pilipina ay karinyosa sa pag-irog. Ay hirang simpatikang tunay, puso mo ay ginto. Pangarap ng bawat nagmamahal.
Good morning, selamat pagi Pak Teguh.
Selamat pagi.
Sehat-sehat Pak Teguh.
Alhamdulillah Pak, sehat.
Ya, syukurlah. Apakah kita bisa mulai Pak Teguh atau bagaimana? Saya serahkan ke Bapak nih. Gimana?
Bisa, sudah semua ya, video semua, audio sudah terdengar semua, terlihat Pak.
Gitu ya, oke.
Kalau sudah terdengar, terlihat semua, ya kita bisa mulai, saya bisa mulai.
Ya, baik. Sudah terekam juga Pak ya, baik.
Sudah semua ya, bisa tampil ya.
Semua pembicara sudah hadir ya?
Sudah Pak.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. The title of this webinar is COVID-19 Beyond the Pandemic Issue, Impact to Education Sector in Indonesia and the Philippines. And this webinar is held by the cooperation between Education and Culture Attached Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Manila, the Philippines, and Primary and Secondary Education Council of Central Board of Muhammadiyah Indonesia. And we are very happy, we are very honored here to be here, and I'm also feeling very honored to be moderator of this webinar. And I would like to warmly welcome all of the guest speakers. And of course, I would like to welcome also Pak Teguh, Minister Counselor for Social Culture, Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Manila, the Philippines. How are you, Pak Teguh? Are you?
Good,
Okay?
very well, thank you Pak.
Yeah, okay. And I would like also to say hi to other speakers. Mr. Rolando Getalampas, you're here. And also Miss Fitri Sari Sukmawati, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for joining us from Yogyakarta, yeah? And also Mr. Ahmad Budairi, are you here already? Mr. Ahmad? Not here yet. Miss Rina Andres, PhD, how are you, ma'am?
Hello.
Are you okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. Have you had your breakfast?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are still waiting for another speaker, yeah? Mr. Budairi.
I've just joined.
Ahmad Budairi. Oh, yeah, Pak Ahmad Budairi, how are you? Good?
How are you? Pretty good. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. Okay, good. So I think we would like to start our webinar, and based on the schedule that has been given by the committee to me, we would like to start. Of course, I already started the welcoming remark by the moderator, and then we would like to go to the second stage, which is singing of national anthem, Indonesia and the Philippines. Please.
Indonesia tanah air, tanah berdarah. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi mandiri. Indonesia kebangsaan, bangsa dan tanah air. Marilah
Gayunpaman, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ayaw mag-ibig, sa silangan, hanap ng puso, sa litin mo'y buhay. Luhang hirap, tulad ng pag-ibig, sa magdulong, di ka masisingil. Sa natatulog sa singer at sa lalim mong bakang, may ginagang tula at awit sa panday ang minamahal. Ang isang ng patawad mo'y tagumpay na nagniligid.
Doa sebelum belajar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi zidni ilman warzuqni fahma. Artinya, ya Allah, tambahkanlah aku ilmu dan berikanlah aku rizki akan kepahaman.
Praise God from whom all blessings
Okay, thank you very much for the prayer. And now we will come to the next stage of this webinar, which is welcoming remarks by Mr. Teguh Wiweko. He's a Minister Counselor for Social and Culture, Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia, Manila, the Philippines. Mr. Teguh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak. To Dr. Rolando Talampas, yang terhormat Dr. Ahmad Budairi, yang terhormat Ibu Fitri Sari Sukmawati, and also Honorable Dr. Rita Angels, and to all participants in this virtual seminar, and also to the moderator Bapak Alfa Amir Rahman from the Central Board of Muhammadiyah. Very good morning to all. First of all, I would like to welcome and sincerely thanks everyone for joining this web seminar, of which I personally believe is very timely because this is every country present dilemma during the pandemic COVID. Since the world was hit by the COVID-19 pandemic early this year, the impact was heavily felt in the first quarter of 2020 as crisis after crisis sprout as a result of the pandemic's domino effect. Although nominally a health crisis, a handful of challenges were needed to be addressed, such as health crisis, economic stability, socio-cultural issues, peace and order, and education, of course. To avoid the spread of the virus and to protect the children and the senior citizens who are considered as the most vulnerable in our society. Some schools postponed the opening of the classes and some even closed down. Because of these circumstances, there are more than 800,000 affected learners. Around about more than 48% of total enrolled learners in the 52, I think more than 50 countrywide closures. Given the situation, the education sector is now faced with a very difficult situations and condition. That is the negative impact of the situation to the students. It could be less learnings, or maybe the higher number of dropout or something like that. Indonesia and the Philippines are both facing the same dilemma, but both governments are doing their best to cope with these conditions and situations, how they fight to the pandemic and how they fight for the students and teachers and the institution. But starting the 2020 academic year was not that easy. It was met with oppositions and objections, not only by the parents that understandably worry for the health and safety of their children, but by the teacher as well, and of course by the institution. Both governments have done many things to assist and create more space for both students and teachers, as well as for the education institutions, such as budget program on distance learnings and modules. Let us not put all the burden to the government, who tries its best to do what should be done in the time like this. We as a member of our community, as a citizens of our country, have to do our part. These are our children that we are talking about. All of us, parents, teachers, community leaders, government officials, need to provide the children the balance they need for their growth and development. The cognitive process and observational learning are two of the most important factors in the child development. Aside from the academic that the school and teacher can provide, they need interaction with their peers, with people outside the family circle and the community. The children really miss going to school. Of course, the parent would like to keep them safe. The teacher do not want them to be left behind in terms of their education. It is complicated, but we must make this work. Now is the time for the school and the family to work hand in hand to help the children. They may not fully understand what's happening around them and why things become as they are, but we should all be there to guide them in the process. No one could deny the fact that effect of the pandemic, but we have to continue and keep moving to our direction, especially for our next generations. And for this, I would like to thank to all participants, to all speakers, and of course to the host and moderator. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Pak Teguh. Based on the schedule that I have now, after you give a welcoming remarks, is the presentation of the keynote speaker, which is also you. Please.
Oh, just a minute. I have problem with this camera. Why? I think the host, my presentation can be shared. Okay. Okay, good morning. Should I start with the very brief presentation? This is the impact to the education sector in Indonesia, especially in Indonesia. But I think this is a general impact to the educations during the pandemic of COVID-19. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, so this is what I also mentioned in my mentioned before, that the pandemic COVID-19 has an impact in the global aspect, not only in education. For example, like health crisis, economic stability. Now we face our recessions. I think the Indonesians also already declare the third quarter now. Now we are in the recession of the economic, and also the Philippines, I think, already declared early before. So socio-culture. So this is, we have the, the people, the culture, the people-to-people contact. We have similarity between Indonesia and Philippines. We have, there's the gatherings, family gatherings. We also quite religious people. So mostly we gather together, but during the pandemic, we have the situations. We have to keep a distance. So this is the impact of us, of the pandemic to us. Also, peace and orders, how to deal with this, the central governments, the local governments. This is like communication between central and regions. Having learned that both Indonesia and Philippines as an archipelagic state, so it's not easy. We have the Indonesian have the 17,000, more than 17,000 island, when the Philippines more than 8,000. How to deal with this? This is that crisis happen, and it's not easy to deal with this. So next, please. So of course we discussed during this seminar education. So we face with a difficulty conditions for the education, that even now we postpone about the opening academic years. So means loss in learning. And some of the institution also closed down, totally closed, totally that no activity at all. But can we imagine in the remote area when the people it's difficult to go to school, it's difficult to get the class, even now is totally lost. So the increase of dropout, it could be, this is the deep and the negative impact of the pandemic of COVID-19. So next, please. So let's start with the education in Indonesia. This is I grabbed from the many sources of the during the last couple of weeks or months that the education in Indonesia is number 4 largest because we have 260 million population. And during this pandemic of COVID-19, you can imagine how the negative impact, how deep we have a problem with this. So then after the lockdown, with quote unquote, we call lockdown, or we can call the quarantine. Now we start with what we call the online system. So this is online education. So every single study we doing by online, but it's not that easy. So we try to cooperate with the state-owned broadcast, the televisions. So every day that we have like online study to the televisions, but we push that someone also, and most of them also still asking that the private broadcast also could participate on this program. So more wider, I mean, so wider and wider can reach, because that's when the archipelagic state, we talk about the archipelagic state, we talk about the islands, the outer islands and very remote islands. So it's not easy. So, but we start with this. Next, please. So by doing this, we can learn. It's the first step. I think the first stage of this policy is not so easy. So some area that have not been reached with technology yet. So even if we are talking about the signal, this is not, we cannot talk about this in some area. This is what we call the remote area. And some of the community and people and the family also, they don't have any very sophisticated gadget or something like smartphone, gadget, tablet, or something like even internet is quite new for them. There is a story, one of story of this when I don't know whether this is true or not, but the boy of student, I think the elementary student, they have to go to the school alone. And luckily that the skeletal system from the school, there still be at least 1 or 2 teachers there. So he study alone because they don't have any gadget, they don't have any internet, they don't have any television or something like that. So lucky for him that he can meet the teacher there and then learn by himself. So this is the story behind the how difficult to deal with the IT aspect. But Indonesia and Philippines are both facing the same dilemma in this. But it's difficult, because as I mentioned, this is the origin as an archipelagic state. But the government's doing well now, and they try to do their best. So that's why we, as the community, we as the parents, we as something like that, we have to help hand in hand to do with this program. So this is the handicap due to the COVID-19 pandemic. basically for the how to give the education to our next generations. Next, please. So I just want to introduce, this is the Minister of Education and Culture, His Excellency Mr. Nadiem Makarim. He's young, he's smart, with very a good vision. So we have so many policy under him. So hopefully during this, especially during this pandemic of COVID-19, that we can bring along together with his vision how to bring the education more reachable. Next, please. So what the Indonesian government respond to this conditions? So Indonesia sees COVID-19 crisis and an opportunity to reform also the education system. So this is kind of opportunity to develop more, to upgrade more in our system. So our president, Joko Widodo, vision is to make Indonesian developed country in 2045. But now in 2020, we have the pandemic COVID-19 that we don't know when will be the end of this. Even some predicted that this is like never ending, but we fight to do what the best for us. The ministry continue to support like learning independence. We call Merdeka Belajar. This is like a policy that the student is can learn something, but more independent. So what they think that good for them, they can proceed with this. This is kind of like learning independence should be. So the budget there, and also we have the budget for the school. This is like help them, assist the institution to do what they have to do and to do what they can do. But if there is any problem with the budget, then where's the government's there? So we call that the government is there when they need to be helped. This is how the Indonesian government respond to the situation like today. Next, please. So we also have the priority education program for basically is 2021. So in terms of the budget, digitalization, this is actually this is start before the pandemic, and now we boost and we speed it up because this is like opportunity to the upgrading the education system as well. So driving school, driving teachers that they lead their own. So both parallel between the institution, student, teacher, together that they hand in hand how to upgrade the educations. Of course, improving the quality of the curriculum. This is the competency also. This is, I think this mostly from the Indonesian side will explain about the competencies, the certificate of these competencies for the teacher, of course. And what the president also mentioned, and then now we develop our cooperation also with the other state on the vocational education, because this is quite important. In the early, the first term of the president, also he mentioned about the vocational educations, and he worked together. I think learn from the one of the European country in which is good on this vocational education. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is Germany or something like that. So also the independent campus programs. Next, please. So in conclusion, I just want to mention that of course, no one could deny the effect or the negative effect of the pandemic COVID-19. So we have a difficulty now. We can aware that until now that only some schools are open, but mostly they close. But they start with the distance learning. Nothing or no one was prepared for it in the beginning. Okay? So all sectors challenge this, making both while the work with the prevention and cure. So without this, I think it's difficult to us also, because I also have a kid now. They learn and study from home. So the problem is like a couple days ago until last night, when the flooding, striking by lightning, and then the Wi-Fi, the internet is dropped. So when this infrastructure was dropped, and then they just fear for the next morning how to deal with this. So this is what the disadvantages of the infrastructure or technology, because you cannot do anything. When the system's down, and then they miss one day, at least one day program, they have to reach the next day for the what they miss. So this is the conditions. So there is a lot on the plate, but we have to push. This is positive. How we think, the positive thinking of this, that we can pass. So hopefully that even not a new normal, but we try to get the real normal again in the future. So by this, I just want to put how we can give our hope and positive that we can cope with this situation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Teguh Huweko, for the presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard from him the perspective of the tremendous impact of the pandemic of COVID-19, on all aspects of life, including education sector. And we hope that in this webinar, we will explore the impact on education and its pertinent efforts to mitigate the unintended consequences, not only on the pedagogical aspects, but also on the wider ecosystem of school life. But Teguh has mentioned some efforts done by Indonesian government, to address this issue. As we know that based on the report from UNESCO, there are about 1.5 billion students all over the world now have to study at home or learn from home. They cannot go to school because of the pandemic, because of this COVID-19. And so almost everyone, every school, they are trying to implement distance learning education, but not in a normal situation. This is in an abnormal situation, meaning that, as Pak Teguh also mentioned, that not everyone is fully prepared for this. So we have to really catch up with this, and the challenge is huge, especially for Indonesia and the Philippines, because both are archipelagic countries. We have in Indonesia about 17,000 islands, and in the Philippines, you have more than 8,000 islands. So how can we address this issue? Not everyone is privileged with internet connection. Not everyone is privileged with the sophisticated gadget that can be used, for interactive learning. with the distance learning educations. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is very timely webinar, yeah, to address this issue. And then we have some prominent guest speakers already here with us, both from both countries. We hope that we can all share our best practices, yeah, advice, and all of the inputs that can be taken and used, to together address this issue. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Rolando Talampas, PhD. He's a College Secretary, Asia Center, University of the Philippines, Metro Manila. I would like to welcome you, sir, to bring up this issue and elaborate this issue from the Filipinos' perspective. Please, the time is yours, sir. Please unmute your speaker first.
Sorry. Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be here. Morning to everyone. I see a good number of people who are probably interested in this topic of education, especially in this COVID pandemic period. And I hope I will be able to share some insights into this topic. I also welcome the Honorable Councilor Minister to Manila. Of course, previously, Dr. Ibu Lili has been very much helpful, to our own students at the University of the Philippines, and also in a good many schools in Philippines. She's a very good friend, and I hope, is she here? Ibu Lili?
No,
Yes,
sir.
yes. Okay, so anyway, good morning, and I'd like to share some thoughts on this topic, and if you allow, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir. You could do that.
Okay. I'm a faculty member of the University of the Philippines in Diliman. My college is called Asian Center. It's a graduate school for Asian and Philippine Studies. But before that, I was also with the original campus of the University of the Philippines in Manila. And since about 5 years ago, I have also been engaged in what we call the UP Open University. Okay, this is our online campus. So for the last 5 years, I have been involved in remote, distance, or whatever you call it, teaching to students taking up the MA in ASEAN Studies. Okay, previously I changed my photo, and I don't know if people observed this picture. This picture I took circa 2014, around early 2014. That's the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan, or what we call here as Yolanda, the superstorm that devastated a good part of what we call Eastern Visayas. And Typhoon Haiyan, or Yolanda, first made a landfall in this place. This place is called Giwan in Eastern Samar. And you can see the devastation caused by that super typhoon. And on a visit here, in the summer of 2014, Haiyan happened in early November, 2013. And you can see children moving chairs from somewhere to a makeshift classroom. And I wasn't able to capture that part. But the makeshift classroom was a big tent donated by, I think, UNICEF. Then you see the children were all smiling and still trying to help out. And I think that's the spirit behind recovery from such a disaster. 5 years hence or more, we see people, I think, have basically recovered. Now, the question that seems to be related is one that confronts us today. And I don't know if we can really be able to bounce back, no? Like when we experience disasters like this, which Indonesia and the Philippines share a lot, no? Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, typhoons, storm surges, these things. Anyway, to go forward, we find in more recent literature discussions by multilateral agencies like the UNESCO and the United Nations. Yesterday, the UN had a lot of talking about the situations being confronted by different countries. And of course, this pandemic is on top of the agenda. Foremost among the concerns raised by the UNESCO is about financing. That's relatively important in relation to our own topic, education. Here shows a huge financing gap, especially by lower income countries. In a good number of countries, it has been noted that slower progress has been than projected has been noticed, and more students than projected actually joined the school system. Education became more costly, although the data availability became a good improvement. But of course, there was less time to achieve the targets, especially in terms of funding at least basic education. That's between 2015 and the current year. Okay. Also, another concern is this one, especially about schools themselves. We see a good number of schools getting closed more and more among lower and middle income countries. Okay. If we can include Philippines and Indonesia among such countries, this is highly alarming. And we'll see some figures later on from the Philippines. Okay. This also has impact on the total share of students or learners which were affected by the closure of such schools. But given some improvements, of course, we see the reopening of schools, but very little between March and July. I think that's the last period when this was studied. Now, in terms of outcomes, this is speaking worldwide. No? Ability scores are noticeably negative in perspective. So one, you would have to note lower average scores among students. And of course, this also has a relationship to the number of students dropping out of school. Higher dropout rates could be noted. Of course, lower average schools, and importantly, a big standard deviation in terms of the abilities of student learning outcome. So perhaps some students who are able to cope with the difficulties of, say, online learning would be better, but the poorer students, as we shall see, and even teachers conducting classes would account for this huge difference, no? Between in learning outcomes in terms of basic proficiencies across, I would say, income groups. So that brings us to our own country's return, no, to what we call normal. One early study, I think, published around April. That's too soon to talk about the post-pandemic. But anyway, he said what is worth studying about returning to normality, that is to normal, pre-COVID, no, education, are the implications that have arisen for the day after, and meaning what adjustments need to be made, the extent of the situation, the basic dimensions of education and learning in informal education systems and organizations amid educational disruptions. Now, if we take this as an important consideration in making sense of what to look for or look forward to in the post-pandemic period, then perhaps we can have an idea of what to prepare and perhaps what to expect. So, it has been noted, and this is not contestable anymore, could not be disputed. At least in the Philippines, two things were noted in the pre-pandemic period. That is before, say, February, when this became noticed as a really serious problem. One problem that has beset Philippine educational system is what may be considered your underinvestment in public education. Okay, through time, as you can see, I don't know if this is really visible to those attending this webinar, is a small part of education spending as a percentage of gross domestic product. It has been, I think, advised or prescribed in a good number of international agencies that governments wanting to catch up should invest at least about 6% of their own gross domestic product. But you can see in more recent visualizations of the problems of scarcity of funding, especially for public education, you see students sitting on the floor because they have no chairs to sit on, or a facility which is simply divided into sections. Nothing really to give soundproofing to classes. And I don't know how students can learn under such environments. Another problem is what has been observed just around late June in a particular setting somewhere in northern Philippines, in a barangay or a village. Teachers themselves walk for 9 kilometers, even cross a river, just to be able to have the so-called signal to join the internet. And I'm not sure if you wish to see this by yourself, but I can show you a bit of this video, a brief section of this video. Just a short part, no?
Animoy nagpipiknik sila sa ilalim ng puno. Pero ang 4 na kababaihang ito, mga guro pala sa Madokayan Elementary School sa Natonin Mountain Province. Ang puno, kanilang naging tambayan dahil dito lang daw may maayos na internet signal. Ang kanilang pakay, makadalo sa webinar para sa training nila sa ilalim ng blended learning ngayong darating na pasukan.
Ang signal naman doon ay fluctuating, nawawala. Kasi yung ginagamit namin ay cellphone. Pumunta kami doon sa hill, kumuha kami ng speaker para isa lang ang magamit na cellphone para hindi naman maagawan yung signal.
Dahil isang cellphone lang ang gamit, di maiwasang magdikit-dikit. Pero ang higit nilang sakripisyo ang maglakad ng 9 kilometro at tumawid ng ilog makarating lang sa barangay Salyok para makasagap ng signal.
Kung bad weather talaga, siyempre madulas. Madulas yung daan. Pero kapag good weather naman, pwedeng dumaan ng lalakarin yun ng mga 2 hours kung good weather. Pero kapag bad weather, you can lalakarin mo yan mga 2 to 3 hours. That's it.
Okay, that's short testimony that, yeah, if teachers take to a good measure of walking about 2 to 3 hours, especially in bad weather, in bad access, not to that high elevation area, just to earn a signal. So internet connection is a problem, especially in very remote areas. Now, of course, the Philippine internet access has been described in this report by the Economic Intelligence Unit. With regards to investment, it's a positive note that government and the private sectors are trying their best to make Wi-Fi available, especially in public places. But it's notable that we still have a good number of problems to hurdle. For example, the Philippines ranks 63rd out of 100 countries in the 2020 Inclusive Internet Index. Philippines is the 19th out of the 26 nations in the Asia-Pacific region, 57th in terms of area of availability, 82nd in affordability, 59th in relevance, and 59th in readiness. In terms of usage, Philippines ranks 57 amongst the 100 countries, 73rd in quality, 51st in the infrastructure, and 66th in electricity. Okay, this just to show that we still have a lot of catching up with respect to providing good quality online access to the people, especially those involved in educating the Philippine public school goers. Okay. Of course, we also have problems in terms of broadband latency, the upload speeds, those things, download speeds, and the like. Now, of course, the situation is a bit really worrisome because, as has been reported just not very long ago, just a few days ago, that 748 out of 14,435 private schools have suspended their operations for this academic year, 2020 to 2021. And this has affected more than 3,000 teachers and more than 40,000 learners. And we can see the distribution across the country, notably a big number of schools in what we call Central Luzon, which is just north of Manila, Calabar Zone, which is just south of Manila, In Metro Manila itself, we have 96 such private schools closing shop. In Western Visayas, Central Philippines, and also in Southern Luzon, which is the biggest island in the country. And you can see the distribution here in terms of private schools closing or not operating or suspending operations. Because as you know, private schools basically source their operational expenses from tuition. Okay, so what I'd like to present next would be the result of a short survey, an attempt to understand more the outlook in Philippine education, especially in this current and in the post-pandemic period. It's basically a question of perception. No? Here we see mother and child trying to make do with homeschooling, provided with modules, a cell phone, and yeah, a lot of patience by the child's own mother. We see a huge drop in enrollment, but in a few days after this statement by the Secretary of Education, it was reported that about 80 or almost 90% of public and private school children were able to enroll. That's just on September 21. I think that's last Monday. So it's a big leap. But then, even with the huge enrollment already, but still, of course, this runs short of the 100% or 90% expectation. We see a lot of problems. So my concern here is to see how teachers perceive the present situation. And that's why I embarked on a short survey, and I involved teachers from basic education up to graduate education. And let me just share with you some of the initial findings from this survey. In terms of optimism, about a third or two-thirds are torn between being really very optimistic and just a little optimistic about the future of post-pandemic Philippine education. As we can see a little later, the basis for this optimism. The respondents basically belong to the K-12, no? The basic education system, half of them, and about 34% are involved in undergrad or collegiate level teaching, while more than 15% are in graduate school academic work. More respondents in this survey belong to the public school system. Those schools basically being run by the Philippine Department of Education. Now, it's rather alarming that even if most of these respondents were coming from the public school system, possibly they are recipients of advisories or information from our very own government agency, they have not really read or come across any official report or pronouncement about how to look at Philippine education in the post-pandemic. Looking forward, I asked them, what does it look like in the post-pandemic Philippine education? Will we go back to full face-to-face. Less than 20% said yes. A good three-fourths or 75% of these respondents say that would be sort of cross between online and offline modalities. And very few would say that really students would do full online or distance or remote modality. And I suspect these are the ones involved in graduate, masteral, and doctoral studies. Now, in terms of their own personal preparations, I asked them if they were really serious about preparing themselves for post-pandemic teaching requirements. It's worrisome that, well, 28% said no. Perhaps they're very busy with some other concerns, both personal and otherwise. Now, who or what should take the lead, no, in preparing for post-pandemic teaching? 37.5 says it's national government that should be the one in charge. Of course, about 35% said it's our own Department of Education or the Commission on Higher Education. Only about 12.5% said it's their own personal concern to prepare for post-pandemic teaching activities. So what do they expect of learning outcomes in the post-pandemic? I asked them if they will have improved learning outcomes. About 22% no, they're not really very optimistic about learning outcomes. And I think these are the teachers who echo the sort of concern by the UNESCO as presented earlier about the great deviations across learning outcomes. I asked them if this is a sort of hidden question, if they will still be teaching in the post-pandemic, if they think they are still being appreciated in this post-pandemic period. 40% said yes, and 53.1% said they're not sure. And I think the remaining small percentage are not so happy about the future of teaching and perhaps may resort to other jobs than teaching in the post-pandemic. Now, I also asked them lastly if there would be any changes with respect to teaching in the immediate post-pandemic period. So I'll just share with you some of their responses, and a good number of them indicate the use of technology, maximizing online resources, the sort of blended learning that could be deployed for the long term, and for those perhaps who have some reservations about problems attendant to face-to-face learning, they said going back to traditional classroom setup might just be an option. So it's not very optimistic about going back to the classrooms. Incidentally, even if government has its own school building programs, I can recall that a good number of reports indicate that these school building programs had not caught up with the demand. In terms of post-pandemic changes, others note that there could be different methods of assessment and evaluation of learning. Just the other day, the Department of Education said that the examinations will not be implemented this academic year. Okay, so one teacher handling university students said that the post-pandemic period would have impact on reading culture of students. And a good number of the same responses are echoed in these noted changes by my respondents. Of course, notable would be technology, the use of technology, of course, and also the obligation of teachers and the sort of different techniques that are that may be needed. That would have implication on so-called teaching hours. So teachers devote more and more time now for preparing for online learning. I think most of the same are noted in these responses to this question. I think that's all for now, and I thank you for bearing with my short presentation. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rolando, for your presentation and insights to all of us. There are some important aspects that you have just elaborated, which are, I think, interesting for us, for our discussion later. Yeah, I'm interested in learning how a teacher has to walk about 9 kilometers, and cross the river just to get a signal. Yeah? And of course, not everyone is privileged with the internet. But what is also interesting is that most of the respondents of your survey in post-pandemic era will be that blended learning will be one of the most preferred modality that students and teachers also have to prepare. And I think it is also interesting to learn that most of them expect the government to lead the recovery efforts. So thank you, Mr. Rolando, for your insights. I think we can have a discussion later about your presentations. Thanks again. The next speaker, I would like to invite Ms. Fitri Sari Sukmawati, MPD. She is a principal of Muhammadiyah 1 Yogyakarta Senior High School, Indonesia. Ms. Fitri, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Pak Alfa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fitri Sari Sukmawati. I am the principal of Muhammadiyah 1 Senior High School, Yogyakarta. Before I was given the mandate as the principal of this school, I also taught at the same school since 2006. So I think it has been approximately 14 years flight hours of teaching. Sorry for the slide, please. Okay, thank you. Especially for Primary and Secondary Education Council Central Board of Muhammadiyah, Education and Culture Agency of the Republic of Indonesia. Thanks for Bapak Alpa Amir Rahman, the Secretary Primary and Secondary Education Culture Council Central Board of Muhammadiyah, also as the moderator of this nice webinar. And warm regards for Ibu Lili Nurlaili, one of my role models as a woman career and also the best mother, and then also make good cooperation, close each other between Indonesia and Philippines school. Include my school, have cooperation with Perpetual Help Delta Calamba College, and then also Miriam College in Quezon City. Thank you, Bilili. And with pleasure and nice in one frame meeting in this webinar with Mr. Ronaldo G. Talampas, PhD, and Mrs. Rina A. Angels. Magandang umaga sa lahat. And also Pak Ahmad Budairi, MED, PhD. Pak Ahmad, I'm one of the alumni from Ahmad Dahlan University, so I'm very proud, and then thank you for this very amazing opportunity to share about my school's, one of the best practices of my school related to COVID-19 beyond the pandemic issue impact to education sector in between Indonesia and Philippines. Okay. We know that the outbreak of COVID-19 in Indonesia happened around March 2020. It was like a trial from God, from Allah, that really made us unprepared, where it was stated that schools were postponed, closed in the second week of March. Even on February, we have felt and predicted that the situation will be worse. And then this condition is very, very unpredictable. And then the next slide, please. But no worry about for this condition. For us as a Muslim, we believe on this situation is a trial from Allah, from God. And then we have the guidance from Al-Quran, for indeed with hardship will be, indeed with hardship will be is. Sorry. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Fa inna ma'al usri yusra, inna ma'al usri yusra. For indeed with hardship will be is, indeed with hardship will be is. So as school leaders, we thought very hard what will happen for this condition. We've ever been known this condition before. This is like an ordinary condition. So the question is, what will we do? At that case, we have the courage to take action quickly. What action of that? Finally, firstly, we share information for all teachers to ready doing distance learning in 2 months before government shared information to close or to postpone school activity officially around in the second week of March. Next slide, please. Okay, I'd like to share about first obstacle space and then school response, the mobilizing crisis, and the school excellence on this webinar. Okay. What happened during this pandemic was an impact in various sectors or fields, including education also. Schools as a field that most people are no less frantic in preparing for this global pandemic. So I will share about things we can share this morning, which I summarize in 4 points. And number 1 is obstacle space. Next slide, please. Okay. In managing human researches, in managing human researches, it means that human researches in schools is teachers and education staffs in schools. As a school leader, must be able to map the potentials. Sorry, the slide, please. Characters and about the culture to always try to change better toward the school's vision and mission. And human researches is the first point that in this condition, we must make everything is, everyone is health and safety in forefront is our main decision for our school human researches in a new normal and new culture in this new normal era at school. For example, we built the protocol COVID in all parts of the activity in school when the teacher come to school, but now we have totally online, so the teacher and educational staff in my school is doing work from home. And then the obstacle face students, the readiness of online learning, doing based learning, doing project-based learning, how to motivate themselves for online learning platform. For the students, we have more than 1,000 students that in this condition, I think the good, what is that? The good way how to doing learning is the methodology is planning in project-based learning. How to motivate in online teaching and learning is only a very short time. So in this quality short time meeting from teacher to students, they have what is that, doing quality time, and after that in this project-based learning, students can do especially according to the subject that the teacher taught to them. So we also have the learning platform like LMS website-based learning management system with based on website, and also the various soft platform. We have that like Google Classroom. So for the parents, the obstacle faces online communication using YouTube and questionnaire feedback, course relaxation target. That is, I think, the solution to get close to the parents and make quality communication each other from school to parents. Especially in this pandemic, we have hard time to make the communication, but we try every day in a group of WhatsApp. We do closer the communication from school to parents. And then for the financial sector, low payoff school fee, yes, we also happened that we give the discount of school fee, and then new strategy to next academic year student admissions in this pandemic, because in the last school academic in 2020, 2021, or 21, we have blended in face-to-face and online, but now we don't know, this is like a post-pandemic, so the academic year's student admission is only on online. Okay, next. Okay, the second is school response. What is our school response? Online learning, compacting materials, and pandemic model of learning, we have that response. Next slide, please. Yes, the type of online class in my school is first content-based learning from videos produced by school via YouTube. Students will watch pre-recorded teacher, and the teacher give opportunity the students to respond the learning video. And then the second type is interactive and real-time learning via Google Classroom and LMS website based. Students will join in their own Google Classroom or sometimes using LMS, and then that is set by the curriculum staff in my school. That's set by the link by school curriculum staff according the learning schedule. So this is the second type of our online class. And the next is we use assignment-based learning. It means that students give the report of the teacher's assignments. This is the combination from 1 to 3 type. And then the fourth is project-based learning. So I think this is my school excellent that our students have some project for this learning. Students will submit project for increasing language project for grade 10 for all parallel class. For language project is for grade 10, and then the 11th grade, they have the project to research project according to their program. We have 2 programs, science and social programs. And for the 12th grade, the students' assessment in numerical and language to university preparation. Next. Okay, this is one link of the video, but I think when I send to, okay, can open it? Okay, this is a situation of my school when doing online teaching and learning using LMS or Google Classroom. From March, 2nd week of March, until now. I think enough. The second video, please. Okay. Okay, content-based learning, interactive, the real-time learning via Google Classroom and LMS, and then assignment-based learning. Project-based learning is the last that we think that is the very effective for project-based learning for the online teaching and learning. Okay, next. Okay, this is one of the example of content-based learning from videos produced by school. And then the actor is every teacher in their own subject via YouTube. So I think this is very also effective to do in online learning. Just example. Students watch a pre-recorded teacher, and the teacher give opportunity to the students to respond through Google Classroom after they see the video from their teacher on YouTube. Okay, maybe we can continue to the next slide if there is trouble for that.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bertemu lagi dengan Ibu Aida Royhana Zuhroh. Pada kesempatan kali ini kita akan mempelajari materi prakarya dan kewirausahaan kelas 11 IPA IPS dengan materi sistem produksi usaha kerajinan dari bahan limbah. Adapun outline materi yang akan kita pelajari pada pertemuan kali ini yaitu yang pertama, aneka produk kerajinan berbahan limbah bangun datar, kemudian manfaat kerajinan dari bahan limbah bangun datar, potensi kerajinan dari bahan limbah bangun datar, dan yang terakhir, perencanaan produksi kerajinan dari limbah bangun datar. Gitu, kita masuk ke section 1 ya. Yaitu, nah tadi kan macam-macam ya, sudah Ibu jelaskan di outline macam-macam kerajinan yang akan kita bahas. Nah ini yang pertama yaitu kerajinan dari limbah kulit jagung. Di sini sudah ada banyak-banyak contohnya ya. Seperti kita ketahui limbah kulit jagung ini banyak di lingkungan yang cenderung berada di pedesaan. Kemudian limbah ini bisa kita gunakan membuat produk apa saja sih? Nah ini kita lihat nih.
Okay, that is just an example that we can find in YouTube for all the videos made by the teacher in my school. Next slide, please. Okay, I would like to tell to Bapak Ibu in this webinar that since 2008 until now, we can share information that introduction of LMS we do in a group of workshop in scheduled with LMS is 10% only for the teacher followed to that workshop with face-to-face. And then in 2010, focused on scheduled workshop, more than 50 teachers followed to mastery learning of LMS, still face-to-face. And then 2011 to 2019, we implemented the implementation of LMS in teaching and learning is 100% teacher totally held class meeting in teaching and learning for applying LMS, doing for remedial, enrichment, and then also teaching and learning. For additional class meeting with LMS, doing test examination, we're also using the platform of LMS. So this is part of the process of our school to have not only face-to-face, but we started in blended since 2011 or 2011 in blended learning. And then because of this unpredictable firstly of the pandemic in the beginning of the March, when this pandemic this happened in Indonesia, so we decided to do online teaching and learning, online delivery system in this pandemic. So totally online teaching and learning, doing tests, doing remedial, enrichment, using LMS, Google Classroom, YouTube, and sometimes we use Zoom also. Yeah, next. So for the preparation of my school to face the pandemic is, I think, good enough than other school because the modality and also the ability of the human researchers in my teacher is ready to face this pandemic in online teaching and learning. So what is the next that we can do for to support the teaching and learning in online? Designing, the next is designing acceleration and compacting the time and also compacting the content. We designed for the curriculum staff, have designed how to compacting the time for 6 semesters. The time for 6 semesters we can compact the materials into not only 6 totally effectively, maybe it can be 5 months, yeah, in 6 months in 1 semester. And then after that we also prepare for designing acceleration and compacting the content. Coverage of full KD. KD is kompetensi dasar or the basic competency in 1 semester. and then minus prior knowledge that the students have, and then the result is coverage, the essential KD in 1 semester per subject. So we inform to all teachers doing compacting the content in 2 days that we can, spirit, which materials that essential or not essential, and then we make the prior time to give to the students from essential materials, and after that we can continue to non-essential materials. So I think this is one of the strategy to compacting the content of the KD in our syllabus in every subject. Next. Okay, this is the model of the education, and then we also have this in school, not only using like pedagogy is a must, and then andragogy, and then this is now, we also do the heutagogy, face-to-face, teaching and learning in schedule using blended learning, and then giving unscheduled activity of teaching in ISMUBA. For example, ISMUBA, we have ISMUBA major or subject, Islam, Kemuhammadiyahan, and Arabic language. Every students make a video speech. That is one of the project, the best practice of the project. And then they collect it to the teacher, and the teacher send it back to the class randomly. And after that, they send the feedback to the teacher without schedule, doing observation without schedule. So sometimes this is like a various, various blocking time in schedule and random time that the students can decide by themselves. So now totally distance learning is very hard also. How to make the students engage to the teacher is very hard. So I think in the process, we think about how to make the quality of engagement, and then the teacher can, measure for the understanding every materials that they gave. So teaching and learning happened at the same time, but during online learning and the activating feedback within. Students are giving material, doing independent learning, include how to give the feedback online. As you know, on the YouTube just now that you can see the outline of the materials, that is the must, it is a must of the teacher give strategy to make engagement in outlining of their material. In the other side, they have prepared, the teacher prepared for their compacting materials that they have. Next. Okay. So LMS web-based in SMA Muhi, we have 8 servers to run the online learning. We can access the learning management system at Muhammadiyah 1 Senior High School, Yogyakarta, in the address of intranet. But for networking in the outside of our school internet network, we use also internet. Parts of the platforms is how to work with lesson content and tasks, how to work with project report, and how to insert PDF file, how to work with feedback, glossary, and customized learning, and how to communicate with students, parents, and both, and also everything communication in teaching and learning online. We use this LMS. This is just information about LMS web based in our school. Next. Okay, now how to mobilizing the crisis. The mobilizing of the crisis. Now, next. Okay, I think this is from me that there are that is the domain of the circle, yeah, like a circle to how to, what is that? Not compact, but doing the mindset, the mindset is the core of everything to make the perubahan, or is that the changes of our mission and vision in the future. The mindset is first, and then they can't what is that? Hack, yes, for technology and innovation and also networks. That is the key of the success, how to make our school to get the good changing, and then the good, yes, the good progressive in the future. And then not only for mindset, technology, network, and innovation, the main point or the important is how about the characteristics of the human researchers is very important. Okay, next. Now our school excellence. We are school leaders or Muhammadiyah leader schools, school leaders and students' potentials. Next. Our students is come from all around in Indonesia. And then we talk about how to assess the process of teaching and learning, even in online teaching and learning. I think if we talk about assessment, we can say that from Permendikbud number 3 in 2017, concerning of the assessment of learning outcomes, there are 3 areas or domains: is cognitive, affective, or attitude, or affective, or psychomotor. Those 3 domains is the cognitive domains. The first is the result of learning in the form of new scientific knowledge and also abilities. And then the 3 domains of this assessment, we use cognitive for everyday, for materials that we have compacting, and also we have doing mapping for essential and non-essential. Even the government also have already doing that essential and non-essential, and we also receive from the government of the compacting materials. Cognitive, doing this cognitive area is on the morning, everyday teaching and learning online. And then attitude or affective domain is the result of learning in the form of behavior changes as a result of the learning process. And the third is psychomotor. This is the domain of learning outcomes in the form of practical skills by the limb, practical skills. Okay, next. So we do the project-based learning. We increase the potential of the process from online teaching and learning, and then we do assess in the 3 domains of learning outcomes with cognitive that the students have, and then affective or attitude, and psychomotor. So I just show you, this is the what is it, the timeline of research proposal guidance or research result from the project-based learning of my school. First is proposal guidance in the month of September and October, research proposal test, revising research proposal and collecting the research proposal. And students have 2 months to do the research. And then after that, in the March of 2021, finishing of the research and the research seminar. And after that, revising and collecting the research final. And then this is almost, this is the grade 11 that they do, maybe around 400 students do this research for project-based learning parallel in all students. So I think this is very well, we also weight the result of every student's the research result. Okay, next. Okay, now for grade 10, the project is doing speaking activity like news reading, speech, and then debate, for example, like that. This is the syllabus or timeline the teacher will do, and the teacher and the students will do. Designing syllabus of learning, informing, and the first coaching in the September and October, and after that, mapping the speaking ability from first coaching to go to the second coaching of students' speaking ability. And then in December, during the third coaching, leave to performing, and then in January to February, showing their speaking ability in the performance online. Like this is like a festival result at the end of the process. So no need the font credit too much or top up the, oh, what is that? Not, this is very effective, yeah, effective to make the online is not using online every teaching and learning. So showing their speaking ability in like a festival or performance online. Second scoring ability after that, doing second scoring ability, doing remedial performance. And then the last is the final performance in the student speaking festival, again in the second. This is like remedial on May 2021. Okay, next. Okay, there is our students' results of writing the anthology, and then also karya ilmiah siswa that we have. And then this is the process how to make more product from the project-based learning. Next. I think this is only how to make us motivate or have high motivation or something like that to get or to make motivate to me, myself, and also my colleague in my school. This is part of the curriculum of KTSP or specific curriculum or the excellent curriculum in my school, in our school. Next. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Thank you very much for the sharing of the information. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bu Fitri, for your very insightful presentation. The first speaker was speaking about almost the national response, from the Philippines perspective. But for the second speaker, Ibu Fitri, talk about school perspective in Indonesia. Yeah, how they reacted to the pandemic, how they handled the pandemic issue, and it is more about on the pedagogical aspects that the schools have to respond to the pandemic. And Ibu Fitri elaborated, the student response and then parents' response, and the school was trying to focus more on the project-based learning and try to make use of the LMS, that the school is trying to provide to the students. And also there are financial issues, financial constraints about the low pay, school fee, discount of school fee, which is, I think, almost the same situation that every school around the world is now facing this, particularly for private students. And interestingly also that the school, your school, has been very innovative and creative in handling this pandemic. And it seems that it is being accustomed to the use of online learning. So we hope that in post-pandemic era, the school will be able to catch up with the situation further. Thank you very much, Ibu Fitri. The next speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Ahmad Budairi, MED, PhD. He's the head of Ahmad Dahlan Learning Center from Ahmad Dahlan University in Indonesia. Mr. Budairi, the floor is yours. Thank you. Pak Ahmad Budairi, please unmute. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to, in particular, say in Bahasa Tagalog to anyone who happens to be joining this seminar in the Philippines. Magandang umaga, sana yoslang kayong lahat, which means, how are you today? I hope you are all in good condition. Yeah. Okay. We all have witnessed how the pandemic has caused disruptions in almost virtually every facet of our life. For example, so much has been discussed in terms of how education should respond to the impact of the pandemic. For example, a lot of discussion has centered around what the government has done to cope with the level of adversity during the pandemic-19, in terms of providing the logistic support, internet connections, mitigating the impact of the pandemic, and so on and so forth. And in the same way, a lot has been discussed in terms of how educational practitioners, policymakers have tried to propose innovations in terms of mode of delivery, in terms of ideas for classroom-based teaching, and so on and so forth. So on this particular occasion, I will be focusing on something which is intimate to ourselves. I want to focus on, internal struggle, something which we experience every day. In particular, in relation to our position, in relation to our role as perhaps policymakers, educational practitioners, and teachers at the forefront of education. In relation to how this pandemic has shaped the way we think about doing research. So we have all here, we might have heard that among academics, there have been quite concerns, quite a number of concerns in regards to the distortion of the work routine, and as well as our apprehensions toward the unknown, the unknown future development, the fear of the unknown. So I think we all feel, to some extent, this fear of the unknown. And this kind of dilemma requires both resilience and creativity on our part as educational practitioners, as teachers and policymakers. So my presentation today, I will try to be brief. I will try to be practical as well. My presentation discuss a few ideas on how the pandemic has shaped the way we think about doing research in educational domain in relation to the pandemic. Drawing from insights, drawing from my online conversations with academics in Australia, via online platforms, of course. So I will be focusing on how the pandemic and the evolving health situation here has inspired researchers, in particular in Australia, to come up with ways to maximize time, resources, and network through online conversations with colleagues. So my presentation is entitled Research and Writing Collaboration During and Beyond the Pandemic. Could you please put on the, okay. So as I said earlier, I'd like to touch on something which is intimate to us, which is our own individual struggle as a human being confronted with the severity of the pandemic, and in relation to our role as a teacher, as a researcher, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting that from my point of view, this pandemic has reminded all of us how vulnerable we are as a human being. I think the greatest challenge for us during the pandemic is the fact that we don't socialize as much because of the health protocol that we have to go by. So in many ways, we cannot fully function as a human being due to the restrictions on our social interactions. And at the same time, as a social being, we always feel the urge to remain social. So this is the first aspect that I noticed during the pandemic as a common ground for research collaboration. The urge to remain social, despite, for example, the constraints that we face. I'm sure everybody experienced to a different extent, a sense of being lonely during the pandemic. And so the urge to remain social can be a boost, can be a drive for us to look outside of ourselves and to start seeking ways to engage with people. And in this context, to engage in research collaborations with others. So it's true as well. We always feel that when we talk about how this pandemic might have held our progress, we feel like, oh, I've been idle for so long, I need to do something, because otherwise I will be dropping behind others. And this desire to move from inertia can also provide the basis for, for us to begin looking at the possibility of networking with other people, with other teachers, for example, to engage in a research across diverse contexts. And so it's also true when we feel that we have been quite restricted in most of the things that we want to do. Sometimes we all feel frustrated as we live day by day. We can no longer, for example, grab our lunch at our favorite place and so on. So everyone, I'm sure, has this kind of feeling of being paralyzed, being hopeless, and being idle, not being able to do as much as you want to do as compared to when we live in a normal life. So the desire to move from inertia, along with the apprehensions of being left behind, can provide a motivational resource for us to engage in a research collaborations with others, where we can capitalize on our potentials. And we can do what we want to do as a researcher. And as a social being, we always need others to make sense of who we are. And in times of common vulnerability like today, the pandemic-19, this need could be even greater than before, because at times we feel insecure and we need somebody else. And this is will serve as a strong platform, a personal platform, for us to engage in a research collaborations with others as well. And just like everything in this world, there's always the other side of the story here. Now, despite the level of comfort that we experience, the pandemic has also brought some sort of blessing in disguise, in the sense that we are rewarded more with personal space here. So we need to be able to make the best of this personal space here, to be more creative and to be more resourceful. And in doing so, we can look at perhaps some areas of knowledge that we can pursue further through research with others. So these qualities, or these human nature, which happens to be more apparent during the pandemic, should alarm us that we are, at the end of the day, a social being. We need to interact with people, and despite the constraints, despite the limitations, then we need to be able to come out of this inertia, and doing research collaborations with others could be a viable medium to help us fully function as a social being. So let me move on to the next slide now. And during my online conversations with academics in Australia, I had the pleasure of getting in touch with one of my supervisors during my study in Monash University. And this is what he said. I have done more than ever before, developing several teams projects, saying yes more often to journal writing invitations, writing more prolifically, designing more book projects, planning more research topics, collaborating with the teaching teams to build more resources for students. And normally I waste too much time on traveling to work, chatting with folks in the corridor, bringing my car to service, going to classes, and printing out materials, walking to the library. All that is gone now, saving me 40 hours a week. Associate Professor at Bow of Monash University, Australia. And this is precisely the nature of our life today. This perhaps something which we experience is a commonplace, phenomena. Before the pandemic hit, we tend to spend much of our time doing things which, might not be useful. As Professor Datba of Monash University suggested here, normally I waste too much time traveling to work. But now he saved 40 hours a week. And this is what I mentioned as a blessing in disguise. While we are being restricted in our movement, in our interactions, social interactions, we are also awarded with something which we did not expect before. So, to provide a context for what I suggested before, let me move on to the next slide. So I'd like to give you an example of a research topic which might resonate with the situations encircling the pandemic-19 here. So one of the research topic that I have in mind, and can be used as an example here is the sociality of emotion. The sociality of emotion. Because from my point of view, emotion, at least within the context of education, emotion has been slightly overlooked and has been understood in a reductionist terms as something which is purely internal. Whereas a lot of literature on emotion suggests that emotion is social. Emotions is socially constructed. Emotion can do things, and we can do things with emotions. So we need to redefine, in the context of education, the way we look at the concept or the notion of emotions. We need to reframe our understanding about emotions so that we will be more responsive. We will be more empathetic and show more empathy to our students. So our pedagogical strategies through material design and so on and so forth. So the questions that we may explore in relation to the topic of the sociality of emotion is, number one, how do we compensate for the absence of personal touch or contact? and a decreased level of rapport in online learning. What pedagogical strategies are required to cater for learners' emotional development and investment? And how does emotion come into play in every facet of learning mediated through online platforms? And how much attention has been directed at the role of positive and negative emotions in learning? And how do we capitalize on the affordances of digital space to make learning more emotionally nurturing? And as we might all be aware that when we talk about online learning, it has been understood as a sticky space, as emotionally sticky space. See, because online or digital space is laden with artifacts, laden with multimodalities, all of them embodies emotions. So as a teacher, as a educational practitioners, it might be useful, to start thinking about how the online space here should be utilized in a way that maximizes students or learners' investment in learning. Because young people, for example, they engage in digital literacy practice where they use a lot of visual symbols, pictures, and so on. All of them are laden with emotions. So we can see here that emotions are not something which is internal, but socially constructed. It emerges out of interactions with people. What does it mean to teachers here? It means that we need to pay attention to, I call, critical emotional moments during our during the process, the teaching and learning process, so that we can ensure that our lessons not only intellectually engaging, but as well as emotionally nurturing. And this is the questions that might be worth investigating and exploring as an example of a research topic in relations to the pandemic 19. And so let me move on to the next slide. So I just want to conclude my short speech today by saying that we use social space and physical resources less, but use brain power more to build strategies and end up producing more intellectual work. So it's very important that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where we are, in what circumstances we are now in. What matters is how we can formulate coping strategies to make the best use of the situations. So how we learn to utilize the nature, our nature as a human being, and to make it work despite the circumstances. So the pandemic truly give us the space, yeah, to look back, reflect, and it's too long. So if we cannot catch up with social life, then we catch up with ourselves. And that's the idea. And then with that in mind, I'd like to move on. I'd like to present a quote. Can you move on to the next slide? Can I move on to the next slide, please? Next slide, please.
Quotes dari Charles Bukowski, Pak, sudah di.
Can you move on to the next slide, please? Can I?
Yes, Pak.
Hello?
This seems to be the last slide.
Yeah, Pak Alpha, can I move on to the last slide, please?
Yeah, this seems to be the last slide.
Oh, okay. Never mind, there should be one last slide then. Yeah. All right, I think that's pretty much, oh, that the one, the last slide. Sorry. Yep. So I'd like to quote Charles Bukowski. Yeah. When he writes the book entitled "What Matters Most is How Well You Walk Through the Fire," which suggests that despite all of these circumstances, what we need to do is to cope with these circumstances in a way which is reflecting our nature as a social being. Thank you so much. Yes, that's all my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam, thank you very much, Pak Ahmad Bu Diari, for the presentations. I think it's more about your research experience, but it's still very important for us also to understand how we cope with the situation right now, and there are some relevance as well. And interesting that you mentioned about how your associate professor said that what is going on now has saved 40 hours a week. Yeah, before, you know, he had to walk through the garage, you know, park the car, go to the library and other activities, and that because of the pandemic, and then that's all gone, and then that is really saving about 40 hours a week. Yeah, meaning that it is with this pandemic, it is getting more effective and efficient, you know, probably to work from home. And what is also important, and then I would like to highlight, you know, what you have just said also, that what we've been doing, hopefully not only intellectually engaging, but also emotionally nurturing. And I think it is important, despite the fact that the offline meeting is absent now, yeah, and then this is a challenge for us, you know, not only at the university level, but also at the secondary level of educations, that students are emotionally engaged or nurtured, yeah. Meaning that it's not only transfer of knowledge during the pandemic through online learning, but also transfer of values is also being implemented or conducted. And I think that's important, because in most cases, I also happen to attend a seminar where students or teachers are debating how can we build characters, how can we build character traits of the students, yeah, through online learning. How can we do it? And I believe that there is a chance also for us, you know, to do this. Thank you very much, Pak Ahmad Budairi. I would like now to move to the last speaker. I would like to invite Ms. Rina Angeles, PhD, a senior high school faculty from San Juan National High School, the Philippines. Ms. Rina, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning to everyone, to my co-panelists, to the participants of this webinar, and of course to the committee of this webinar. Good morning. All right, so I'll be presenting a little discussion in a teacher's perspective, because a while ago we have learned about what's the government response to the pandemic, the schools respond to the pandemic, but we often sometimes overlooked also the teachers, because the teachers are the one who actually make in action. After all doing this laws in education, who will be the one to do the action? It's in the lower level of the education, wherein the teacher will be the one to do it. All right, so let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Please allow me to share my PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, one moment. Can everyone see it now? And I want this presentation to be a little interactive because I am the last presenter. So I want to hear responses from our participants in Indonesia and in the Philippines as well. I'll be showing you one picture and I wanted you to give me an idea, all right? Or what are you feeling right now when you see this one? What do you miss most about it, all right, in this picture? What do you miss most about it? You can write your answer in the comment box and let us hear responses from the teachers in Indonesia and let us hear responses from the teacher in the Philippines. And I would want to request our moderator to read some responses from our participants. Let's see some responses from teachers in Indonesia. What do you miss about it? Most about this picture. If you happen to see this picture, what are the common things that you missed? Let us see some answers at the comment box. My student participation in lecture. Yes, I also miss my students' participation. How about the others? Active class interaction.
I miss the chaos sometimes.
Right. How about the others? Oh, it's so sad that there's no student in the picture, right? Do you also miss wearing your uniform? Do you also miss wearing your school ID? Right? So these are the common things that we miss about our school, our organization, our institution. All right. So I am an English teacher and specifically literature teacher. So I will be discussing it in a perspective of or using literature as the lens. And let's see. I cannot move the next slide. I do not know what happened. All right. Impact of COVID-19 education through the lens of AST. And later on, you will be seeing what is this lens. All right. So I'm kind of integrate my presentation as a literature teacher because sometimes we overlook to listen to the teacher's sentiment. They're the one doing the actions, and sometimes we overlook to listen to their sentiments. All right. And I'm showing you my picture when I am still at the classroom during the examination of my students. I sometimes post answer your exam with honesty and integrity, then you can get your complimentary apple. That's the way I actually have my classroom set up, just like that. Through the lens of asked, you have seen there the ask word. And what or who are these asked now? Asked is the teachers. It's just like in literature when you study reader's response. Here, we are hearing the response of the teacher. All right? So what could be now the teacher's perspective in the times of COVID-19? Okay? Quick flashback in the Philippines. So this is a Philippine setup. March 2020, lockdown in Manila started March 15. So how many months now? March, April, May, June, July, August, September. It's almost 6 months now. And actually, during the time of March, it is actually graduation day. So what happened to this graduation ceremony? Of course, the most awaited graduation has been postponed. And what is the answer to this postponement? We've done our graduation virtually. And I believe you've done that in Indonesia as well, right? Virtual graduation. Because, of course, we want to prioritize the health of our student. In the Philippine setting, it's supposed to be June when we are about to start the class. However, the case of COVID-19 is actually worsening the time. So the Department of Education initially scheduled it on August 24. But still, the cases of COVID-19 here in the Philippines is still worsening. And we have decided, or the Department of Education decided to move the opening of the class this coming October 5, 2020. And the big question here, are we prepared enough? If you're going to ask the Department of Education, are they prepared enough? Most especially teachers ask, are we prepared enough in this coming school year? Right? That's the big question. Now, if you are about to rate yourself, 10 being ready or super ready, prepared, and 1 is the lowest, what would be the rating? Can you rate yourself? Let us see some responses. 10 being prepared. And then the other one is the lowest. Can you rate yourself? If you are most prepared, 10. If you are not, then how are you going to rate yourself? I have seen here answer from Miss Josephine, 7. How about the others? All right, 4. Below the average. How about the others? 5. 8. Congratulations if you got that 8. 6. All right, so most of us will answer they are not so well prepared. And most of you will answer, yes, we are prepared. It will be a case-to-case basis, most especially for those private institutions and public institutions, right? Because in a private institution, sometimes you already have the LMS in your school. However, in a government or in a public institution, very few has this LMS in their school. But before we dwell on more of this, as you have seen, October 5, 2020 will be the start of the opening of the class here in the Philippines. And also, it will be a celebration of the World's Teachers' Day. And allow me to say, Happy World's Teachers' Day. Before I proceed to more of my discussion, let us say Happy Teachers' Day to one another. It's because we teachers are very important, especially in this time of pandemic. All right? Happy World Teachers' Day. Shall I proceed now? I have extracted one news in CNN Philippines, and it says over 700 private schools offering basic education are not offering this school year. This is according to the Department of Education. And as you can see, I highlighted 748 out of 14,435 private schools, institutions, or educational institutions which opened last academic year will be suspending their operation this school year. So in this case, if we're going to notice, what will be the result? Job losses. Not only to the teachers, but also to the administrations of the private institutions. Why? It's because they cannot sustain anymore, right? So job losses for the teaching administrations, and of course, others who are vital in education. Who are those? You can have the janitors, the guards, and so on and so on. In the view of a teacher, I have here 3 highlighted things. First, so these highlighted things, I gathered this from a focus group discussion and even interviews from a co-teachers. We have the rapid move of online modular or modes of delivery. Because of the rapid movement of this online delivery and modular delivery, teachers have these intensified workloads. You are about to do module in this subject. Like for example, me, I am an oral grade 11 teacher, senior high school teacher. So I need to do module in oral communication. I need to do module in creative writing. So this intensified my workload as a teacher. And this is true. This is happening. Also, at the same time, you are being required to do some video demonstration in which you will be the advisor or you will be the subject teacher. So the rapid movement of this online delivery and modular delivery also intensified the workload of the teacher. Not only that, I'm going to give you another thing. But we always look at the silver lining. So this could be some of the problem, but there is always a silver lining, as they said, when we have this or when we face this. First, we got to produce authentic materials. It's because we have this video of ourselves doing the lesson. We are producing authentic materials wherein we can share to our colleagues, wherein we can share to other people who might be teaching the same load or who might be studying the same subject. And what else? You have this learning new technology. Before, I am not good to this, but now you are good in doing or manipulating that. Before, I do not know how to video myself, but because of this, you got to learn step by step. You've got to learn gradually the steps on doing a video demonstration. You've got to learn how to write a module properly. It's because we are being intensified with this and we learn so many things with this. We are learning from this experience. We struggle, but we are learning. Then I would like to highlight number 2, and I think it's really very important. It's because we have the overlapping of webinars and training. Sometimes teachers, these are in the view of teachers, teachers are very confused. Which webinar should we attend? That's the impact, the impact of attending webinars and multiple webinars happening all at the same time, right? We are confused which one to attend and which is not to attend. So how can we check or how can we classify the webinar which is good for us and which is not good, or to attend or not to attend? But then even we have the overlappings of trainings and webinars. I am saluting all the teachers around the world because we are becoming flexible, right? Even though we are lacking of gadget, as we are not so prepared, because not everyone can afford to have laptops. Not everyone can afford to have tablets, right? But then I am saluting teachers for having this courage attending all the webinars being offered to them. What's the silver lining for this? You are being capacitated, capacitating one's skills, and you have this wise decision making, right? Which one to attend and which is not to attend for the meantime. And then let's go back again, because most of the webinars, they have these recording sessions, and most of the webinars are being uploaded in YouTube or Facebook, wherein you can always review if you have missed it, right? So do you also sometimes experience having overlapping webinar? Can you show, can I see in the comment box who are those teachers who have experienced having an overlapping seminar? Let us see some responses. You can just raise your hand if you have some overlapping seminars. Yes, me, according to Sir Victor, he has this overlapping seminar. How about the others? It's because even me experienced that we have overlapping seminar. And most of us experience that, right? Okay, so thank you so much for sharing. And now I will be highlighting number 3.
Maria Angelica.
Maria Angelica as well.
Oftentimes.
This working remotely, this can be one of the struggle that we have for a teacher's view, a teacher's perspective. Working remotely, you are working at your home, using your own cell phone, using your own laptop, using your own tablets. But then, as I mentioned a while ago, not everyone is so prepared in it. As the government responds, they are actually giving these technological tools, and that's wonderful. That's awesome. However, not all is being what? Or not all received those technological gadgets. That is why at the own expense of the teacher, you are using your pocket money to buy your own computer, to buy your cell phone or tablet, or even loading for the internet, right? So these are common things that we might want to explore when we are doing some researches about the impact of COVID-19 in the view of a teacher's perspective. How about the silver lining of this? Of course, we spend quality time with our family. And we tend to be more innovative. It's because we teachers are the best visual aids. Do you agree? That we are the best visual aids in the absence of these technological tools, right? Thus, these technological tools will help us in delivering our lesson virtually. It's because we cannot meet them, right? Right. So these three things in the eye of a teacher that maybe I would be suggesting for those future researchers who would want to explore more about the impact of COVID-19 into teachers' perspective, right? Now we have here, what else? Do you have any idea in your mind that I didn't mention? Because these are the three things that I've gathered and collected from the point of view of teachers in my area. How about in Indonesia? Or how about in your areas? Let us share for a moment. And this might be helpful for every one of us. All right, maybe 1 minute to see some sharing. Everyone is contemplating. All right, so while we are waiting for what else, also, you might have your own silver lining that I haven't posted it here, but you can have this, okay, your own strength, okay? Upon this struggle, we always see the brighter side. It's because we tend to work collaboratively. Asian countries to other Asian countries, or among networks of educational sector in the whole world. We work collaboratively. And as I end this one, okay, we are all equally important. Work collaboratively para sa bata, para sa bayan, for the children, for our country. It's in Tagalog term, para sa bata, para sa bayan, for our children and for our country. If we do have any question, I would like to answer that. And that would be the end of my PowerPoint presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rina, for your very insightful and interesting presentations. Very engaging. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think you mentioned also about the adverse effect of the COVID-19 to education sector in the Philippines. You are mentioning that over 700 private schools in basic education are not operating. Yeah, I think that is also the challenges, common challenges that we are also facing here in Indonesia, I believe. And Ms. Rina also highlighted some teachers' perspectives. First one is the rapid move of online modular modes of delivery. And then what is inspiring is that Ms. Rina mentioned about the positive side or the silver lining, of the challenges that we are now facing. Yeah, you mentioned about producing authentic materials, learning new technology as two of the silver linings of the rapid move. And secondly, the overlapping webinars, that teachers now are being bombarded, with webinars, this webinar and that webinar, and then you will have to make a wise decision, which one webinar that you will attend, to upgrade your skills and competency. That is good, yeah. And last one is the silver lining of the working remotely, having more quality time for your family, having more time, to do some sport, and becoming more innovative. This is really a teacher's perspective. which is, I think, is very important for us, every one of us to learn before we learn about from Miss Fitri about teacher's perspective from Indonesian side, and now is from Miss Rina, we learn about teacher's perspective from the Filipino side. That is good. Thank you so much for the presentation for all the speakers. And now let's see. We are going to move to the Q&A session. Yeah. Let me see. Dear participants, I would like to invite you, to write your questions or comments in Q&A sections, please. And then I will try to look into it. Yeah. Okay, we have some questions already here. I would like to read it. Yeah. Let's see. Questions for Ibu Fitri. Yeah, this is from Mr. Nurwanto. Ibu Fitri, this is a question for you. How do you make sure that students' well-being can be maintained during the COVID-19 pandemic, while schools in general tend to considerably focus on teaching and learning? Yeah, that's the first question for you. Have you written it down?
Yes, I have already.
Okay.
Yes, already.
Allow me to read the questions first, yeah, before the speakers answer, so that we're collecting the questions first. And second question is for Mr. Ahmad Budairi. Is there any evidence-based research informing the effectiveness of online learning, the students' engagement with learning? Okay, Pak Ahmad, have you put it down?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. All right. Next question, third questions. I'm just collected 3 questions first, yeah. From Ibu Esti Dwi Narniati. My name is Esti from SD Negeri 2 Sidoarjo, Temanggung, Central Java. My question is, what is the best solution from some obstacles of e-learning during this pandemic, especially for the remote areas which lack internet access? These questions, I would like to present this to all of the speakers. Ms. Rina, maybe you can also help answer this, yeah? Mr. Rolando, yeah, please also try to answer this as well. So there are 3 questions now. First, I would like to invite Ibu Fitri, Ms. Fitri, to answer this question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the questions for Pak Nurwanto. Pak Nurwanto, before we make sure to our students, we must do firstly make sure that us as a teacher must sure that from our designing of the materials for teaching and learning in the outline of online teaching and learning is good, is qualified, and then every students understand. Because every classical or in online is based on our design through like lesson plan, the short lesson plan with outlined of our lesson plan until we do finish in online teaching and learning. Pak Nurwanto, maybe we are as a teacher, we have understand well about the comparison to both condition. In the previous condition when we did in offline, in classical teaching and learning, and then now the after conditions of pandemic COVID-19 is we do in online. We understand the combination of both situation. When we do in the offline, maybe the focus of the students is also very short focus in when the engagement happened through the students and teacher, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, the understanding of the focus through the materials. And then now we do in online, the schedule of online teaching and learning shortened by the situation, not like in offline. So maybe less than 5 to 10 minutes the understanding of the materials that the teacher gave to all the students. So I think the effective online teaching and learning, or in Indonesian is pembelajaran jarak jauh, effectively is using project-based learning. No need more time to buy the phone credit, and then effective the innovation and then the creation of the students, the result is real from the project-based learning. And then more of the beneficial of the project learning we can get. So I think that is my answer, Pak Alpha, for Mr. Nurwanto, Pak Nurwanto.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Fitri. The second questions will be addressing evidence-based research. This question is for Pak Ahmad Budairi. Please, Pak Ahmad.
Okay, thank you, Pak Nurwanto. The findings in regards to your questions have not been conclusive and tends to vary across different contexts. Yeah? Because most of the studies investigating the connections or the link between students' level of engagements and online learning are based on a case study, so making it more difficult to, for example, well, if we can generalize, but yeah, of course, case study is done with the purpose of understanding the particularity of a certain social context. But okay, since you are asking for evidence-based, I'd like to cite a number of research findings here. The first one is a research by Lambert and Godry in investigating the impact of web-based learning technology on college student engagements. Now, the study found that not only do students who utilize the web and the internet technologies in their learning tend to score higher in the traditional student engagement measures, they also are more likely to make use of deep approaches of learning, like higher order thinking, reflective learning, and integrative learning. So the author here suggests that there are encouraging signs that internet and web-based learning technologies have a positive impact on students' learning and engagements. Now, on a slightly different note, a research by Claire, focusing on offline factors contributing to online engagements, revealed that simply including an online component, even with face-to-face interactions, is not enough to create a community of engaged learners. Yeah. The author discovered that online environment works best for verbal, confidence, and determined students. The engaged and disengaged students' patterns of engagements were easily detected very early on, which the author suggests that early intervention and extra support is required for the students who are disengaged from the start of the course. And the last research findings that I'd like to share with you here is a research by Cole, focusing on the use of wiki technology to support student engagements. Now, his research revealed that social technologies such as wiki are used differently by students in a personal context and were not adopted properly. So this implies that the use of wiki may not help in terms of promoting students' engagements. So you can see here that the findings vary, yeah? And I think when we talk about engagement, it's a complex notion, yeah? Sometimes students do not seem to be engaged, not because of the way the teachers deliver the lessons, or because of other issues, yeah, which might be related to personal issue and so on and so forth. And sometimes it is related to the momentary, yeah, to the momentary conditions of the students themselves and so on. So it's an elusive concept, in my opinion, and it needs to be dealt with carefully through appropriate methodologies and through appropriate data analysis in order to draw conclusions that this particular, for example, online learning brings positive impacts on the level of students' engagement. And so, yes, it's, the findings vary, yeah, across different contexts. I hope I have answered your questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pak Ahmad Budairi, for your answers. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Rina to answer this third questions, please. The best solution for some obstacles of e-learning during the pandemic, especially in rural areas. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I'll be answering in a Philippine setting because right now what we do is we have this modular learning. So aside from having this online face-to-face meetup, we also have an alternative which is giving module to our students. So in my area specifically, in San Juan, what we did is every teacher, we're going to make module, weekly module. So in the absence of internet connection, they can do the module, they can still follow. And then we give this module in our barangay, so the small unit of community. So we give the module, and then the barangays will be the one to distribute these module to the parents of the students. So what we usually do, we submitted all the list of this student's name in this particular barangay, and then they will get the module, and then they will bring it at home. It's because here in our school, we are not allowing our students to go in a school, especially if they are 21 years old and below. So the one who can get the module will be their parents or their guardian. So in the absence of technology, they can have the alternative, which is the module. So that's basically what we are doing here in the Philippines.
Thank you, Ms. Rina. I would like to invite Mr. Rolando, please, to answer these questions as well. Thank you.
In the University of the Philippines, the keyword is course pack. Well, Professor Rina here calls them course guides or what have you, but you know, course packs. So we have had seminars on how to make course packs. These are, you might consider them independent learning modules for either online or offline, or a combination of online and online learning or students. Of course, for us in the graduate studies college, which is the Asian Center, that's not really much of a problem because we basically rely during the face-to-face interaction with, usually we can go merely with syllabus or, you know, simple teachers course guide. But the practical problem would be for those courses or classes that require, say, laboratory work, or in the case of so-called physical education courses. So question is, how do you teach ping pong or tennis or martial arts or ballroom dancing So this requires a lot of imagination for online modality. That's a very practical problem. And right now, of course, since teachers here in the UP Diliman campus are used to face-to-face instruction, they have really done a lot of work describing how it should be, where it's not possible to have this face-to-face instruction. In one campus, for example, in the University of the Philippines in Manila, teachers in the biological sciences, they subscribe to, I don't know if you have heard of Lobster. It consists basically of simulation experimentation. So students don't really are not really able to touch the specimens or the laboratory equipment or really conduct those things, but they, it looks like they're doing online games. Of course, that's really a concern because yeah, they can perhaps do that by the click of the mouse, but you're not really sure if they can really do, say, correct, how do you call it? For example, dissection of a frog or a cat or something that you deal with in a biology class, or in experiments in physics, like, estimating or computing for gravitation, acceleration due to gravity or something, which we did a lot during face-to-face sessions. So it takes a lot of creativity and imagination to reimagine and implement distance teaching or distance learning for students. There are very, very practical problems, and as we already know and have indicated, bandwidth is a problem. The gadgets being used is a practical problem. Of course, for those who simply rely on metered access, they pay per minute. Financial consideration is also important. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rolando, for your answers. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've been discussing very important aspects of the pandemic, yeah? And I think every one of us here in Indonesia and the Philippines is struggling to catch up, and we're not losing our optimism, as Ms. Rina mentioned in her presentation, that there is always a silver lining in every problem that we have. And we hope that in the future, in post-pandemic, we'll be able to catch up and to go further, particularly for students who are probably left behind due to this pandemic. But what is important thing that I would like to highlight is what Rolando and Ibu Rina mentioned, with this distance learning education in this time of crisis. We should not focus only on internet-based learning. Ms. Rina mentioned that alternatively, we can also use Moodle, and that is important also for us to be able to reach people in remote areas where there is no internet connections. So this is, I think, the perspective that has to be fixed also in Indonesia, that learning from home is not always has to be based on internet. It can also be done without internet. It can be done through a module. Teachers producing module and send them to students, and students send the task back to schools. And so there's always a way, to cope with this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, as a moderator, I feel very honored, to be with you all. And then I would like also to give high appreciation to every one of you, to all the guest speakers, yeah, for all your very engaging presentations, yeah, so that we can have an idea, yeah, alternative idea how to handle or cope with these situations. Okay, I think I would like to end my role as a moderator, and I hope that everything is benefiting from this webinar. And then I would like to invite, of course, Mr. Teguh Weko, the Honorable Minister Chancellor for Social and Cultural Affairs of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in the Philippines, to give closing remarks. Please.
Thank you, Pak, for giving me time again for the closing. So distinguished speakers, participants, and moderators, as well as the host today's web seminar. First of all, I would like to thank to the host first, and to the moderator, and all speakers and participants. So I will repeat again that from the opening, that once again that we as member of our community, as citizen of our country, both Indonesia and Philippines, have to do our part. We cannot give all this to the state or to the government as one. So this, we are discuss this, our children's, our next generations. We are talking about the future. All of us, parents, teachers, community leaders, governments, officials, all etc. need to provide the children the balance they need for their growth and development. This is our directions. We have to be a positive that we can reach this one. So I believe that the many things that we can do. We cannot say that we cannot do anything because of pandemic of COVID-19, but we have to believe that many things that we can do. But if we could do together, as many actors, state actor, community, teachers, students, parents, and all stakeholders together, we have to find a way that we can fight the pandemic COVID-19. And we make this not a new normal, but we have to reach again as a real normal for us. So by saying this, I believe that we can do what we have to do. Thank you, stay healthy, and good day. Thanks to all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the host. Thank you.
Pancarkan terang cahaya, dalam diam sepenuhnya aku merayakan memilikimu, bersemara dekat dan penuh, semoga riuhnya bergemuruh di udara. Bertanya-tanya lah kau curiga dari mana
For the certificate and material, we have shared the link on the chat box. You kindly follow the link to get your certificate and the material for free.
Sudut kerling matamu pancarkan terang cahaya. Dalam diam sepenuhnya aku merayakan memilikimu bersemarak dekat dan penuh. Semoga riuhnya bergemuruh di udara. Bertanya-tanyalah kau curiga dari mana asal suara. Dari sini, dari aku, dari sini, dari aku. Aku masih gerimis yang kecil, kan jelas ku jadi petir-petir yang hebat. Dan bila waktunya tiba mungkin aku lebih berani. Bukan dalam diam saja sepenuhnya aku merayakan memilikimu bersemarak dekat dan penuh. Semoga riuhnya bergemuruh di udara. Bertanya-tanya engkau curiga dari mana asal suara. Dari sini, dari aku, dari sini, dari aku. Merayakan memilikimu bersemarak dekat dan penuh. Semoga riuhnya bergemuruh di udara. Bertanya-tanyalah kau curiga dari mana asal suara. Dari sini, dari aku, dari sini, dari aku, dari sini, dari aku.
Indomie sebelah hot jeletot dan Indomie.
Labis na naiinip, nayayam mo'y sa bawat saglit. Kapag naaalala ka, wala naman akong magawa. Umuwi ka na, baby. Hindi na ako sanay nang wala ka. Mahirap ang mag-isa. At sa gabing hinahanap-hanap kita.